Hello. I was wondering if I might trouble you for a cup of strong black coffee, and in the process engage you with an anecdote of no small amusement.
Hello, Herd, and welcome to another episode of NerdyVerse here on Nerd Herder. I am J-Dub.
I am the Boopus. You know me.
And we are here starting a new little bit of a series, I guess you could call it. I don't know, but nonetheless, for the remainder of the year, for NerdyVerse,
Yes.
we will still have our main show over where we talk about Star Wars stuff. And right now we're talking about the sequel films. So if you are a fan, or if you're not and you want your mind blown and your thoughts stretched, then listen to our main show episodes where we talk
Yeah.
about nothing but love for the amazing sequel trilogy.
You're getting perspective for Christmas.
Yeah, right. But as for us and our nerds, for Nerdyverse, we will be looking at Spider-Mans,
Ooh, it's Spider-Man.
the various iterations of them, leading up to the release of No Way Home, the third in the Marvel Spider-Man
Yeah.
movies.
The furthest that anyone's gotten,
No,
other
well,
than Raimi.
other than Raimi, but maybe they'll do a good third one.
Oh,
And so in
Yeah.
leading up to that, we wanted to talk about all of the Spider-Mans.
you
And
do.
so each week we'll be taking a look at that. And this week we start off with the earliest film iteration, at least. Obviously not the first Spider-Man.
No. Have you
Um,
seen clips of the 1970s
I've
Italian
watched them.
Spider-Man?
Oh yes, I thought you were going to talk about the old cartoon. I was going to say
Oh,
I've watched the
dude.
entirety of it actually.
Well, no, I'm not going to say all, but a lot of the Spider-Man cartoons are just absolutely just on
Really
point
good
good.
boys.
I
Uh,
really like Spectacular Spider-Man. That's a newer one.
That's the Drake Bell one, right?
I think so.
Not problematic at all anymore.
Oh, yikers.
Luckily, it's just a voice, and you can forget
You could
about the
ignore
person
him.
it comes from. So Sam Raimi released, along with a lot of help and a lot of
Yeah,
input
and Bruce
and
Campbell.
a lot of stuff, released a trilogy of films back in the early 2000s, the Spider-Man trilogy, as it were,
Yes.
when superhero films were being discovered, being
Yeah.
legitimized.
What year was this?
This was the first released in 2002.
Hmm.
And so, really, for the MCU, we have obviously Iron Man to thank, the actual first MCU movie, even
Yes.
before technically it was the MCU, but nonetheless, there were intentions for that to go in a direction. But in order for Iron Man to have happened and for the MCU to come to what it is now, first had to happen the Blade trilogy, the Spider-Man trilogy.
Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider. Say Ghost Rider.
No, it's
Say
not.
Ghost Rider.
That came much later.
Excuse me, sir.
It added nothing.
It added my love.
No, it didn't. You're just doing it to spite me.
I'm not, though. I genuinely love that movie.
That had no positive impact. If anything, they were like, we're not hiring Nicolas Cage for any more superhero movies.
And they did.
What?
Into the Spider-Verse. He was fantastic in Into the Spider-Verse.
He was a joke in that one.
No, he was not. He was his
to be
beautiful
a joke.
self. Do you remember the Christmas
Quality
Carol
movies?
Do you remember
Like
the
the ones we're
Christmas
talking
Carol
about?
movie
No, what
with
movie?
Nicolas Cage in it?
No.
It was an animated movie and it had Nicolas Cage in it.
Nope.
I remember.
Probably wasn't good either.
I disagree. You are such a butthole to Nicolas Cage, and I don't understand why.
Daredevil, though, that had something to do with it.
It was a bad movie.
No, it wasn't.
I don't like Daredevil.
Oh, well, I don't care. I don't like Nicolas Cage. See how it feels?
Yeah. I did that to spite you because
I
you spited Nicolas
know!
Cage, and it makes me
He's
upset.
not a great actor, and I think it's fine to say that.
Excuse me.
Thank you for blowing out the audio.
Okay. Listen, man. Nicolas Cage is unironically my favorite actor.
And that's fine, and I still love you.
Yeah, sure.
But of all the films that impacted the MCU, Ghost Rider's lowest on the list, in my opinion. I just don't see. Again, you can see the true threads from these movies, from the Blade movies, from all of the ones that were financial successes, that led to the MCU. Ghost Rider kind of just happened, and
Okay.
nobody wants to talk about it.
Sam Raimi's trilogy and Ghost Rider are cousins.
No, they're
Yes, they are.
no.
They're the same level of campy fun
Look.
and
I
entertaining to
support.
watch.
No, they are not on equal ground at all. First of all,
I have
Ghost.
such a good time watching
Ghost Rider
Rider.
did not come out until 2007. After these movies, if anything, they fail in that they came out the year that the worst Spider-Man movie to that date came out.
Wow.
So it was just a bad year for superhero
There's
movies
some salt happening today.
because they're not good movies. And I will not have you claiming that they laid a foundation
Okay.
for the MCU.
Here's how we settle the argument. Are they entertaining to watch?
No.
I disagree.
This is not about Ghost Rider.
I've never not smiled while watching Ghost Rider.
And that's your problem. We've wasted 5 minutes on Ghost Rider.
I don't feel like I've wasted time.
I have, and this is about Spider-Man. If go start a podcast with somebody else about Ghost Rider.
If you ever want us to talk about Ghost Rider on the podcast,
we are not talking about Ghost Rider. I refuse.
Text me, not John.
And do it on your own. As for me, I'm going to be over here talking about Spider-Man to myself, apparently.
I'm talking about it. I enjoy them in the same vein.
In the same vein?
Yes.
In the same vein?
In the same vein.
In the same vein?
I like the colors. I think they are very pretty movies to watch. Specifically the Sam Raimi Spider-Man I'm talking about right now.
Much. Okay.
Look, man. Okay, the first movie is so orange, but orange is one of my favorite colors, so.
It's very chromatically colored.
Like a comic book.
Yes, that was the point.
Exactly. It looks like a comic book.
Right. And it's really well done. They even have a lot of the early days. They didn't do as bad as X-Men did in terms of trying to shoot certain things. That's where you draw the line. X-Men X-Men is bad.
X-Men is bad though.
No, it's not. Oh, worse.
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
It's one of those
I can't
things.
trust your opinions anymore.
Have you ever trusted my opinion?
Yes, but now I'm calling everything into question.
Well, that's your problem. You trusted me in the first place. Anyway. So, the X-Men movies.
We're not talking... No. I have to have some level of control of this boat.
Good luck.
And we're taking it to port.
I'm taking the rudder, baby.
My God. Spider-Man 2002.
Spider-Man.
The trilogy began without talking about any of the lesser movies. Can you share your opinions on what kind of Spider-Man fan were you? Are you what was your level of Spider-Man when this movie would have dropped?
Well, I watched all 3 of them in the theaters, I will say.
Okay. I watched none of these in the theaters actually.
I had the benefit of having brothers and family who like to go to the movies.
I mean, I did. We just didn't have money.
Well, yeah.
So thanks for
true.
shaming.
Well, that's kind of all we did for fun sometimes was we would just go to the movie theater and gorge ourselves on popcorn and try to wrangle 4 rowdy children into seats.
I mean, if it wasn't Star Wars, generally we only went to the theaters during the dollar months of summer where it was like, hey, kids are out of school, so let's cash in on that and have a bunch of older movies. So it was just a lot of recycled movies usually during summer that I got to watch.
That's fair.
Like, actually, I specifically remember, like, we had to have these, at least the first 2 were recorded on VHS.
Oh, man.
It was one of those things where I knew of the first movie, but it wasn't until catching glimpses of it at my grandmother's house on TV where I was like, I need to watch this. I have a dire need to watch more of this because this 5 minutes I got to see was so amazing. And so I remember the first 2 at least were recorded on probably like FX or whatever station on VHS, and then finally bought Spider-Man 3 on DVD.
We had
much
2
later.
copies of the Spider-Man 3 DVD at one point. I remember that when we got married and we merged our collections.
So before the movies, though, so you saw the movies in theater, but before the movies, did you have any opinions about Spider-Man?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I grew up watching, cartoons. I had brothers who liked comic books. We spent a lot of money on comic books.
Hmm.
because it was the only thing that some of us would read. And so, like, I had read,
The reading's reading.
yeah, I agree. I had read Spider-Man comic books and I enjoyed them.
Hmm.
So, I don't know, it was kind of a natural move to be a Spider-Man fan.
Gotcha.
At
Um,
that point, it was just that and X-Men that I was aware of.
I mean, well, around the same time,
Mhm.
definitely. Um, and like it or not, these films, whatever your opinions on them, are more formative, just because they're earlier.
Yeah.
Obviously, everything's a bit. Um, if it weren't for the likes of Ghost Rider, honestly, that character might not have been as mainstream. Um,
Hmm.
if it wasn't for a bad movie, a
So
lot of people
rude.
would like that was the first time I knew of the character, but I'd
Mhm.
never seen anything. And so that was the first time I saw Ghost Rider and everything. And so
Ghost Rider is a very cool character.
it absolutely, and I think that for the likes of them to show up in Netflix series later on in new iterations and everything,
Mhm.
like that, some of that wouldn't have happened without those films.
Yeah.
Arguably, we wouldn't be so needy for a Marvel Spider-Man if not for these films.
And also
Um,
them finally getting it right.
yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
okay. I
Um,
have to quantify that statement because Tobey Maguire, fun.
so you have,
Great Peter Parker.
I was going to say, you have opinions about each of these. So for
Yes, I
this
do.
one, your opinion is that Tobey Maguire is a good Peter Parker.
I think he is a great Peter Parker. I
Don't
think he's a good, like, nerdy teen at first. I think he becomes a nerdy adult a little too soon, but he
He
does
was 25 in high
exactly.
school.
He does
Let's be honest.
he
He
does
was a grown
the
man.
he does the comedy very well of Peter Parker. I think like he's funny and he's awkward and he's goofy.
So I want you to save the rest of your,
Yeah.
like, for each one, because we are going to talk about the Garfield films. We're
Yes.
going to talk.
Can
No, yeah, a Tale of Two Kitties.
we please talk about the Garfield movies?
No. The only thing that I'll definitely not talk about more than Ghost Rider is the
Come on.
Garfield movies.
I'll find someone else to talk about Garfield with.
Do it. Um,
Connor, if you want to come on the show and talk about Garfield, let me know.
So, but because we're going to get into the other films, you'll have an opportunity then to talk
Yes, I
about
will.
those Spider-Men. But as far as here,
Because I have different opinions.
Toby, a good Peter Parker. I thought he was very well cast. I mean, I know
He
Tom Holland gets a lot of credit,
Yes.
but I mean, I grew up with the late '90s Spider-Man animated series,
Yes. Very good.
something that financially helped recover Marvel. It's funny how many times financially Spider-Man has saved Marvel,
Hmm.
um, and that show being one of them when comics weren't getting bought, and so they got into a new realm. Obviously, yeah, we have the old Spider-Man series, we have the old cartoons, but none of those were financial successes.
No.
Not not enough to keep the company going like uh, the late Spider-Man animated series. So I grew up with that
Hmm.
and was a big fan. And that Peter Parker is a very particular Peter Parker. And I
Yes.
think that Tobey Maguire is that Peter Parker.
Exactly. The
Uh,
thing you've got to remember about Peter Parker as a character and Spider-Man as a extension is that he is goofy.
mhm.
He is awkward and he is poor.
Yeah,
I
but
relate to him.
he's a very square kind of guy
Yeah.
too, though. In that, like, although like a lot of these films and the animated series, a lot of his humor is dorky humor. A lot
Yeah.
of it's just very like nobody else is laughing with him, and it he Spider-Man is cool, yes, but he's also kind of uh, goody two shoes because he's just so upright.
Hmm.
Um, the likes of Captain America and Superman get such accolades for their humanity and their moral standards, but Spider-Man
Yeah.
too has proven time and time again in film and comics and in shows he's quite an upstanding and good guy.
He good boy.
And when you translate that kind of Boy Scout energy to film, I think
Mm.
I think Tobey Maguire got it right,
You
very
know
much
what?
so.
That is exactly what it is. It is Boy Scout Golly G energy. That
Absolutely.
is 100% Spider-Man Peter Parker.
He's the one
Spider-Man.
he's the one that represents so well that just innate kind of um I mean more some people are more in touch with it than others
Mhm.
need to do the right thing.
He's
Um
wholesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I really like Tobey Maguire in these.
Hmm.
They got a lot of casting choices right. We'll stick to
Oh
so going
yes.
into the first film, which, like I said, I remember seeing just the house on fire scene at my
Hmm.
grandma's house, and that was when I was like,
That's
"Oh my
the
gosh,
definitive scene, I think, for
that
a
I
lot of people.
yeah." When you think of this film, I think that or the one with the parade when they're
Mm.
on like the banister or whatever.
With
Um,
what's her face, Macy Gray singing.
I guess I don't know who that is.
It's the lady that's singing in the parade.
I didn't know they were singing. I just knew there were skeletons, and there was a
Yeah.
float and stuff.
And MJ's wearing a culturally insensitive
What
dress.
is that? I never understood that. There's also
No.
that scene where I guess they weren't very good. To be fair, it was Kirsten Dunst in the thing,
Mm.
but it was like there's a scene where she's falling and it's very clearly she's like laying on something and just kicking her legs.
Yeah.
And I see that so vividly in my head of just like that's that's not danger. I'm not afraid for her. Um
That okay. While we're talking about casting,
uh-huh.
what do you think of Kirsten Dunst as MJ?
Not a fan.
Me neither.
She's very flat in general. I think
Yeah.
she plays off of Toby very well in the key scenes, but in general, I'm just kind of okay. But I also think that's partly because
She was very popular at the time.
who her?
Yes.
Oh, well, I think it's just they didn't really know well what to because she's not like yeah, she gets the tiger lines and everything, but
Yeah.
she doesn't really embody like a lot of my basis on who these characters should be is based on the animated series. So
Yeah.
for me, that's the cool girl. That's the one where it's just like I get the idea of like, oh, she's a little out of Tobey Maguire Peter Parker's league, but in
Big
general,
time.
it's kind of like I mean, I could see it,
And like I think she has the air of I'm better than
but you're
you.
supposed to have that energy of she doesn't give that like she's not saying that, but you can clearly see she is a little um fiery. She's a little too much for this dorky guy to be with. Like
Mhm.
it doesn't make sense. But that's what makes their relationship special. Whereas here it's just very much like, okay, sure.
Yeah.
If that's who you want to go after,
Go
I
for it.
guess. Um but I mean, I've seen much worse characterizations and
Yeah.
acting in general. So I mean, she's fine.
She's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely don't think and even though I like what they're doing with the modern films, I still don't think we've gotten a very good Mary Jane.
Mhm.
Obviously, we only have the new films in this one because Andrew Garfield's films never got to get there, but
Mhm.
um I just think for some reason it's a hard character. I
Yeah.
don't know why, but it seems to give producers and directors and creators trouble,
Mhm.
if that makes sense.
Well, I think Zendaya is doing a good job. I hope that No Way Home gives her more to work with because she is a great actress.
Yeah, and it's definitely a very different take, and that's why I say like what she's doing for their MJ is very good.
Mhm.
And I like sometimes that's what you have to do is you have to completely recharacterize someone to make it work because this is just this she's very much a vehicle for the greater characters,
Yeah.
right? She's a vehicle for Peter and Harry, right?
She is a trophy, and unfortunately, a lot of the time in early 2000s movies, a girl's personality is just girl.
And that's literally like her point in a lot of these movies. So,
Yeah.
and you also get James Franco as Harry. Now that we
Ugh.
mentioned it, um,
Can
yeah.
can we just get a collective ugh
What you
from the
think of James
audience?
Franco's all out there? Um, I thought he was okay. I thought he was very
He was
good in the
fine.
third one,
He plays a
actually.
good like douchey
Rich,
teen
yeah, he plays the character very well. Of like,
because he
I
was.
don't realize the privilege I have. I don't realize the difference between me and my best friend. I don't like, and in one way I like that how that was portrayed throughout the films of like, here's this rich kid hanging out with this
Yeah.
poor kid and they don't care. They're just friends. But then at the same time, that's supposed to be part of the tension eventually. And
Yeah.
I think they did that well. And I especially in the third one when he gets to be a character and doesn't get outshone by other villains, I think he does a really good job there.
Mhm.
I liked Evil Harry, what
Yeah.
they did with it for these
Oh,
films.
it completely changed the way I say so good for the rest of my life.
um,
That pie gif, it gets me every single time.
And so and then you've got, I mean, arguably the only man who could have, and I guess
Okay.
still only one who can
He's the
play
only
Green
one that can do
Goblin.
it.
Um,
It's like trying to recast Neo or Iron Man.
I
Like,
mean,
you cannot get
it's
anybody
gonna come
else.
up eventually. It's
I
gonna
don't want
happen.
it to, though.
But Willem Dafoe is amazing as Norman Osborn and
Incredible.
as the Green Goblin, I think.
That was the most perfect casting choice in the entire franchise.
I think so. I think it's one of those things where it's like they cast Toby and we're just very much like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. This is gonna be good.
He's
And
so
then
good.
they got Willem, and then they were like, no,
Oh,
this is the good one.
this is
Everybody else
perfect.
is gonna have to live up. Like
And then he
there's
dies.
something about the villains though,
Yeah.
of these films where they get the villains so right. And again, we've praised Toby, but for some reason they outshine him.
Yeah, every single time. Like,
Um,
as much as I dislike the third movie,
mhm.
Sandman, very well
Absolutely,
played. Very well done.
absolutely. Um,
Venom,
Thomas
eh.
Church, who's an amazing guy. Oh my god, I love so much that he's the lobster in the Suicide Squad
Yes.
stuff.
It's so good.
Not the no. Oh my
No.
god, what is wrong with my brain?
I
I
don't
know
know
what's
what is
wrong.
wrong.
I know what's wrong with my brain. 14-hour workdays.
Yeah.
The lobster from Hellboy. You haven't
Yes.
seen this movie. You have no point of reference. I'm sorry, but
But I've heard about it.
he's amazing.
Okay.
He's just a fun guy. He is in everything he does, but he's also such a dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's got super dad energy, and I
Big
think he
dad energy.
brings that to everything he does, and that's why you're either like, haha, he's so funny and goofy, or you're like, oh my god, I'm so emotional right
Yeah.
now. Like
He's not a daddy. He's a father.
yes.
Father, father, I love you, father. He's
Um,
got a dad bod. He's got a father figure.
Goodness gracious. So, anything big and outstanding for the first one? Since we've kind of spent a good bit of time, I want to go ahead and get to the, and
Yeah.
for everyone's perspective, that's what we're doing. Really, is we're just talking in general about these
Yeah.
movies. We're not doing big deal reviews, although maybe I'll ask you to give an overall
Yeah.
idea and rating at the end. But
Yeah. Here's the thing. I will give my favorite scene and my least favorite scene. My favorite scene is the wrestling scene because it's
Shut
Macho
up.
Man Randy Savage.
That's not fair.
Bone saw is ready.
That is not fair.
Okay, but it is a good scene though.
It is.
It is an excellent fight
But you're
and fun.
biased.
It's fun to watch.
I'll
okay,
allow it.
and it's got Bruce
I've
Campbell
already
in
given
it.
you a hard. Every movie has Bruce Campbell. You can't base that like. Oh my goodness! I've already given you enough hard time. I'm gonna allow
Okay.
it so we can move on.
Okay. Yes, but that is my favorite scene
Okay.
because it's very well
It's a
shot.
it's a good
It's a good scene. Okay,
Okay.
not just because Macho Man, even though he is my favorite wrestler. My least favorite scene is the kiss in the rain scene because that kiss is gross.
'Cause it's
Okay.
upside down.
It's upside down. There's way too much tongue. There's too much nipple. There's
Too much
so
nipple?
much nipple.
There's nipple.
There's nipple. Like you can see her through her shirt almost completely, which I know is the point because you're
I-
putting Kirsten Dunst in the rain. You're
I
gonna put her in a
actually
thin
did not
shirt.
realize that.
Yes. Well, you were not a queer kid trying not to be queer.
I was just more so just like, is that comfortable? Because like
It's not. It
his
doesn't.
nose is in her chin and her nose is in his chin, and
It's just not
I
sexy.
just feel like which way do you duck at that point? I
and
don't know.
also, they just met. That's a little bit weird to be kissing
Right,
someone that
It's
intensely.
very much a little crossing boundaries a little
Yeah.
bit.
And,
I get
I
that.
don't know, man. I just feel like it's a very wet and very gross kiss.
I really don't have a least favorite scene. I can't like think of anything where I'm just like meh or whatever. I think
Yeah.
this is a really really solid movie.
Oh, it's very good.
I do really love the origin moment. You know when Uncle Ben is shot and everything. Cliff Robertson played him, and
He did a
I
very
think
good
he was a
job.
very. I thought it was a good casting for
Oh.
that.
Aunt May too. She was a great casting.
Yeah. And I'll say that Rosemary Harris as Aunt May gets more moments later on, like when in later films Toby reveals who he is, and when he says I was there. Like there's later scenes that give them the kind of chemistry. I thought that Uncle Ben and Peter had in this.
Mhm.
Um, that scene really does. Even if you know what's coming, I thought that it was so well done that it really does get you in his feelings of I'm gonna go get this guy. I'm gonna go punish him. I'm gonna be not a hero. I'm gonna
I'm gonna be
I'm gonna
vengeance.
get a revenge.
I'm gonna be Batman.
Like I feel like that one, other than just being like, oh, boo hoo, it really warranted the emotion of that scene, in my opinion. But I love so much of it.
Yeah.
Um, I love the first time that, like, right after Norman Osborn gets juiced and becomes the
Mm.
Green Goblin. I love a
Ooh,
lot to do with Willem Dafoe in
it's a
this.
very good jump scare
Hmm.
too.
And that's where Sam Raimi's like horror background and um, dealings with the macabre work well, because he gives a lot of jump scares to this. The dinner scene where
Mhm.
Peter's coming in late after being Spider-Man, and Willem Dafoe's almost like hunting. He's you can see he's like wearing a human suit of trying to be
Yes,
normal,
that is a great
but
word for
the
it.
goblin is him
Yeah.
now. And so almost this sort of induced
Yeah.
schizophrenia is going on, and it's
And
really interesting.
kind of an Evil Dead reference with
Oh
him in
yeah.
the mirror.
And so, yeah, a lot of what I really enjoyed, it has to do with Willem Dafoe
Yeah.
and Raimi's acting, not acting, directing.
Yeah.
Ah,
Ted Raimi does a great job. Ooh, J. Jonah Jameson. We
oh,
forgot to
that's right,
mention.
he's in this. Oh
Yes, he
yeah.
is.
Um,
Ted Raimi's in everything.
who was the guy that plays him? J. Jonah Jameson.
Ja.
He was in those
What is his
commercials.
name?
You would think we know,
You'd
but
think he's
J.K.
such
Simmons. There we
J.K.
go.
Simmons. He's such a great actor too, even outside of J. Jonah Jameson. Have you ever
Yeah.
seen Whiplash?
Yep.
Good movie.
Yeah, it was very good casting, obviously, because they're bringing it back.
Hmm.
And so I think of all the people to bring back, you've got Willem Dafoe, you've got J.K. Simmons. I
Hmm.
mean, honestly, we've got it all at this point, because as we move on to the second movie, we
Another
realize that
fantastic
Alfred
movie.
Molina's coming back,
Oh
right?
my God, it's Alfred Molina.
The arguable best villain of these films, in my opinion.
Not arguable at all, I think. I think everybody. This movie came out at such a pinnacle moment for, I think, a lot of our peers
Hmm.
because we were all just at the right age to experience something amazing.
Yeah, so whereas the first one was very introductory and a lot of the action was very quick leading up to one big climax,
Mhm.
Spider-Man 2 replaced that, I think, with all right, you're in for the ride
Yeah.
now. We can go from the beginning. This is a seasoned Spider-Man at this point. He is very adept at being Spider-Man and Peter.
Mhm.
Now, gone are the days where there's too much of this. Oh, are they gonna? He's very good at
Mhm.
going between the roles and everything.
Another great use of Sam Raimi's act or not I did it too. Directing horror background because this movie can be scary at
Yeah.
times.
Again, he manages to work those things in very well.
It makes me so excited for Multiverse of Madness.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and so yeah, with these, with Spider-Man 2, um, again, we get a more experienced Spider-Man in this one, I think. But like, there's only so much you can escalate with Spider-Man. So the really big focus is on who do we pit him against. And like we mentioned, Alfred Molina is brought in as
Mhm.
Dr. Octavius. Doc Ock, as
Yeah.
is used as a joke in the No
Very
Way
good
Home
though.
trailer, because it is kind of silly.
It is very silly.
Um,
I
you know,
will admit, he does such a good job as Dr. Otto Octavius before he's Doc Ock, where
hmm
it's the joke with the has
yeah,
anybody lost a roll of $100 bills wrapped with a rubber band? Well, we found the rubber band. That
right.
I love that so much, and it does so much to build a character that you feel so bad for when they lose their mind.
Yeah, and that's and obviously they put a lot of weight on who they bring in to do these roles, because obviously, I mean, if you're looking at the cast list, um, everybody should be honored to be acting with
Oh,
Willem Dafoe
absolutely.
in a green jumpsuit. Everybody should be honored to act with Alfred Molina on top of a train. Like, you're talking about titans of acting,
Mm-hmm.
well established at this point, coming in to bring a bit of theater to a very otherwise action and fun
Yeah.
brand. I mean, let's be honest, if not for the acting of the villains, most of these movies are just fun.
Yeah. I mean, they were building a Sinister Six. You cannot tell me any different. I
They were
think,
not building. No,
yeah.
I mean, if Raimi hadn't gotten so frustrated and left before Spider-Man 4,
Yeah.
maybe,
I
because it was really
Bruce
they
Campbell
were
as
trying,
Mysterio. I would have loved that so much.
but I think that's part of it. They got a
Yeah.
little too hungry, and what you see is when you get into Spider-Man 3, and obviously we will spend more time on that, but you trade out um, acting heavyweight villains for
That guy from that
generic
70s show.
generic copies of our main
Yeah.
character. Which here's the thing, I freaking love Topher Grace.
Oh, absolutely. He's
Eh,
such a nerd.
God forbid anything crazy ever happens, because I'm
Yeah.
now recorded saying that. But as of now, and everything I know about him,
Yeah.
I really love him.
Here's the thing. I did not say that guy from that 70s show derogatory.
Oh yeah.
He's a
Well,
delightful human
I
being.
didn't like anybody in that show.
That's
I
fair.
never liked that show. So, but for whatever reason, from this point
Yeah.
on,
That was My
I
Office.
followed him very well, and I've enjoyed
Mhm.
his nerdiness, his him. I enjoy
Yeah.
him, and that's made me enjoy the characters he plays more.
Yeah. He was Eric Foreman,
And who?
the guy from that 70s show.
Oh,
I say it like you know, because you didn't watch it. But
no.
like I said, it was My Office. While
Um,
everybody else was watching The Office, I was watching that 70s show.
and although he's really great, he's not Willem Dafoe.
No.
And arguably the guy you get to play Venom never was going to be, but that's why it shouldn't have hinged on him, in my opinion.
That's why you get Tom Hardy to play Venom.
I haven't
You still
seen.
haven't
I
seen
still
it.
haven't seen it.
You need to watch it so much and then
I'm
scream
told.
with me.
So I'm told. So in this
You need to
one,
watch it for pride.
yet again. So in the first one, there's not really a city spanning a big uh villain plot. It's
No.
literally just in the first one, it's Green Goblin being evil. In this one, it's a gone crazy doctor trying to complete his work.
Mm-hmm. The work that killed his wife, yes.
Right. Under the influence of his robo appendages,
Which are incredibly cool.
which I really liked the idea of. Let's not just make it a guy that put on a backpack and became evil. Let's explain. Because I mean,
I love that concept though.
don't get me wrong. I'm sure an evil scientist out there would find an evil backpack and continue to be evil.
My backpack is evil and is trying to
But
kill me.
I love so much more a character who was his own and good and genuine person
Yeah.
under evil influences, and explaining. I mean, these were the early days of AI.
It
and
fried his brain.
lots of that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And almost oddly, again, very schizophrenic in the sense of you've got these
Yeah.
voices, you've got these hallucinations and influences. It's weird how Raimi's kind of obsessed with that, because that's kind of what the symbiote does to Peter too.
Yeah. And a joke that is
Sam
funny
Raimi, are you
to
okay?
a joke that is funny to two people. What's evil about the backpack is that it has no applesauce.
Right. Backpack for your
his
applesauce. For your miniature son, apparently, is really what it is, because that's the whole deal.
My miniature son. I
The
love
Dr.
him.
Octavius is trying to do that. It's this idea of infinite energy, I guess.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the Octo arms want him to complete it. And that's never really explored, and it doesn't need to be.
Hyperfocus, baby.
Exactly. It doesn't need to be. These appendages were created for a task, and they want
Mhm.
to see it through.
Exactly.
They were literally created to help control this infinite energy resource, and that's all they want to do. And it just means that they're going to do whatever they want, even if that's crushing people's faces and, fighting
Yes.
men in tights.
Killing a doctor that makes a
Having
dumb joke.
One of the best daggum action sequences. The train
Dude.
sequence in this is
Oh
incredible.
my gosh. And we're getting another one.
Right?
Oh my gosh. It's going to be so freaking good. I can't wait.
And so yeah, I really enjoy this. And obviously another kind of sideline plot point that ends this movie is Harry finding out the truth, because
Yes.
obviously it's not a big deal to find out your friend is Spider-Man unless Spider-Man quote unquote killed your father.
Yeah, quote unquote. Even though you find out in the third movie,
I
this
this dagger your
came from
father
his own glider.
killed. If you've never seen the outtakes of this like
It's
90-year-old
so
man
funny.
who can't even read his lines, it's adorable. Don't get me wrong. I don't hold it against him. He's 80, 90, whatever years old. But it's so dang funny that he can't even get one line right.
The wounds from this.
The wounds from your hand were your dagger's father.
Luke. No.
Wrong movie. Yeah, and so and I really love the very goofy, hammy thing. Like you get the whole mask is ripped off, thunder and lightning in the background of
Yes.
oh my friend,
and then
like,
backflips.
Anthony. It's just like it works so well for no good reason because what's amazing about these movies and this one in particular, because like I said, they did go action and even like you mentioned horror heavy, they still cross so many boundaries. They do so much with these movies, and it's the brilliance of Raimi and his team. I really think that are like, hey, we're not gonna be boxed in just because this is a comic book character.
Exactly, and that's what I love so much about Raimi's directing style is that he does not take himself that seriously.
Absolutely.
Everything is so much fun to watch.
So since you started this trend,
Yeah.
favorite and least favorite thing from this movie?
Oh man, the train scene is my favorite because it is so visually pleasing. It is
Fair.
so beautiful.
Very fair.
The action is so well choreographed. Ugh, Doc Ock looks amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I love the behind the scenes before they put in the VFX of him singing "If I Were a Rich Man."
Yeah, I love
It's so good.
actors in suits doing goofy stuff before the
Yes.
sets.
Because he was on Fiddler on the Roof.
People just having fun in between things. It's great.
Yeah, it's so great. Do I don't know. I feel like for the rest of the franchise, my least favorite thing is going to be James Franco. Because I don't like James Franco as a person.
That's
Yeah.
not fair, but okay. Not fair to the movie, I'd say.
Yeah.
Totally fair to the person.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think directly of anything I'm least interested in this. Again, and of this trilogy, this is my favorite. I think it's the
Agreed.
best. And prior to the MCU, I think it was arguably the definitive superhero film. And I'd even say that it stacks well against some MCU films.
Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
there are a lot of things that aren't apples to apples, of course, but
Mhm.
in general, in terms of quality, in terms of understanding characters, in terms of crossing boundaries of genres and everything, this film is hard to beat. And so I like a lot about it.
Mhm.
I'd say the thing I really love is, because obviously in the first one, there's not much saving to do with Norman Osborn.
No.
Here, Peter has a personal relationship with Doc Ock, and so he's trying to save the person. He's not just trying to win, right? And so I love that he flips some of the
Yeah.
influence that this mentor has given him of sometimes
Yes.
you have to give up your dreams, and it's this idea of, a wise man once said, and it's just like, dang it,
I love
you're hitting me with my own advice.
Exactly. I love the moment of clarity.
And
where he was just like,
that's
Peter.
vividly what I kind of remember from that moment most of all is he's obviously lost in his craft and everything, but it's that one thing that anchors him again, and all of a sudden he realizes who he is again. And I'm a doctor, and I'm going to do the right thing, whether it's my dream or not, and I'm going to end my work.
I'm going to put myself at the bottom of the ocean.
And so that ending, although you could stack anything he does as Doc Ock or Dr. Octavius, and you would be right in saying it's some of the best of this film.
Yes.
I just really enjoy. Oh, I know what my least favorite thing is. The scene where they're in the coffee shop and he's about to spill the beans and a car just comes crashing through the window.
You don't like that?
So you want to find Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So your goal is to kill the man that can lead you to Spider-Man with a car through the window?
Yeah, man. How else does that work?
Cool action scene, but it's one of those things where it's like it was done for the action scene.
Yes.
Made no sense. Although after that, you should definitely be saying like, man, this nerd is really spry.
Also, let's point out the fact that MJ gave up on marrying a astronaut for Peter Parker. What about
I get. Oh yeah, what that was a
yeah,
thing in this
that
one, I
was
guess,
J. Jonah Jameson's son
because they
too.
were set. Yeah, well, that was always the deal.
Mhm.
That was who that character always
Like,
was, who brought back the symbiote.
astronaut or Spider-Man, if you had to choose right now.
Astronaut.
Astronaut, right?
I'm gonna get kidnapped a lot less by being an astronaut's wife.
Unless it's the DC universe.
I guess. Yeah, good transition into
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3.
Spider-Man 3, the bad
Uh,
one.
a problematic film, to say the least.
It's still fun to watch. Let's
It
be
is.
honest.
At the very least, you can still have fun.
Yeah.
Did it not land well? Did it not do what
No.
the other two before it did?
No.
Fair, but they still managed to make something you can watch. Like it's
Was it
still,
goofy as heck?
yeah,
Yes.
pretty much. And starring now Star Wars alum
Mm.
Bryce Dallas Howard
Yes,
as
Gwen Stacy.
yeah.
She didn't get her neck snapped.
No, they didn't get time. They ran out of time for this.
Boo.
But I like the I
Too
like
many neck bones,
I like the
not my Gwen
reverse
Stacy.
inclusion of MJ first, that kind of falling
Yeah.
apart, and then introducing Gwen Stacy versus the original where there was Gwen and then MJ came along later. I like the idea of how that adds some flavor to
Yeah.
the relationship dynamic going on, because that's the only thing that really gives um Kirsten and Toby really anything of value here is,
Yeah.
I think, the tension of how they're going to take these next steps, what they're really going to do with the rest of their lives.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good point, and that has been explored in several different Spider-Mans. But like
yeah,
this one does it okay.
it's fine. I mean, this movie in general is fine. Like you mentioned, Sandman, Thomas
Sandman,
Church,
so good.
the best casting of this. If you had to give a best casting choice to each of these films, it's obviously Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, and Thomas Church.
Absolutely.
Although me and my bias, I'm really glad they did get Topher Grace,
Oh yeah, I think he is a fun foil.
because
Very comic booky.
you want a watered down evil clone of Peter
Yeah.
Parker, you get Topher Grace. I
Which-
think he did that part well.
My main problem with this movie, like I hate to start it off on a negative, but you could really tell that they didn't want to flesh out Venom as much as he could be. He was meant to
I
be just a
almost
foil.
I almost wonder if they even really planned on going Venom.
No, probably not.
I really wonder if it was meant to just really be, I'm dealing with the symbiote, I reject the symbiote, and now I'm going to go save the day.
Yeah.
And the symbiote kind of lingers off, and that's the tease of, well, we know what the next villain's going to be, and then you get a chance to really flesh out Topher Grace's character as well as Venom in general, because the whole Eddie Venom thing, that's what Venom with Tom Hardy's film has done right, and I can tell from
So good.
not even watching it, is that you
It's a relationship, guys.
right, you characterize both sides of it. That's what the animated show did very well. With this, it's literally just, this is my power up for the big
Mhm.
finale.
Yeah,
There's no character to the symbiote,
you read the Wikipedia page.
right?
That's what it feels like.
Well, and that's the thing, is it's just like Venom is a character. Venom
Yeah.
is a character apart from Spider-Man, Eddie Brock, Flash Thompson,
Yeah.
any of them. He is a character. And here, it's not that. It's just evil goo.
Evil Goo was my nickname in college.
And that's why I say, I feel like the intent was to leave that as the next thing.
Yeah.
And they were so afraid that the next thing wouldn't happen that they pushed this in as the big finale. Because it really seemed like what it should have been is, Peter Parker swoops in, now gallantly sure of himself as Spider-Man, and with his powers returned and everything, and he saves the day, loses his friend, but bookends that very well. Makes amends with the supposed killer of his
Mhm.
uncle. Good movie.
Yeah.
Like, obviously it's all
Decent.
imagination, but I
Yeah.
feel like that's a good ending. But then it's just like, no, let's go big.
Let's go big. Let's do
let's give him
3
his
guys.
big villain.
Yeah.
But you don't build him to be the big villain.
No,
Venom is not built to be the big villain.
nor is Hobgoblin, if we're being honest with ourselves.
But
Hobgoblin was not set up in the slightest.
but I think that serves its purpose well. Is that's what it's meant to be. It's supposed to be the sad little boy flailing at an attempt to redeem his family name and to
Yeah.
save his father, who he never really loved and who never really loved him the way he wanted. But it's this idea of, well, but you took him from me, and it's just this idea that you keep getting what I want. My father liked you more, and you killed him. MJ likes you more, and now you can't seem to tie the knot. You keep wasting what I want, and he's projecting, and he's just it's sad.
He is incredibly
It,
pathetic.
it's supposed to be
Yeah.
pathetic. From my perspective, like that's how I've taken all of that. It's this build up to this very
Yeah.
sad and pathetic attempt at being a villain, when that's just not who you are, dude.
Yeah. It's Kylo Ren all over again.
But bad.
Poorly executed Kylo Ren is
He's got
Harry
a
Osborn.
surfboard, or
Okay.
skateboard, or whatever.
I kind of like the glider.
That's so. I mean,
It's bad, but I like
eh.
it.
I'll give you the glider, but the
The
no
mask is
attempt
bad.
to actually goblinify yourself.
No. And also the pumpkin bombs. Where
Oh
are
yeah,
there more pumpkin bombs?
we went from pumpkin bombs that disintegrate people,
Yeah.
vaporize
Very
them,
cool.
to
Boom.
minor inconvenience to
Yeah.
your face.
Yeah, that healed very quickly. Like, did you get skin grafts there,
Right?
Harry?
Did Grandpa, put you in a Bacta tank
He's
before
just
revealing that your
standing.
father's dagger's son dagger's
Your-
glider?
It came from your father's glider.
Right. Only the dagger tells.
God bless that old man. How did he know?
His whole thing is, I tended to your father's wounds that night. It was his glider. Okay.
Okay.
Spider-Man could have just picked up the glider and
Okay, pep.
skewered him. Like,
Also, wasn't he already dead by the time he got back to
who dat?
Norman?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He was
got
dead.
almost cut in
He
half.
ga-
So why would you need to tend to his
He
wounds?
got straight up just jackknifed.
He got owed,
Yeah, I mean, like
which is
he
a
was
great line
dead.
delivery.
Which that
Oh.
final thing when he's like, "Don't tell Harry," smack.
Yes,
I'm
it's
like,
so
"Oh,
good.
golly, commitment."
It's so good.
Anyway, so this movie, um, the good villain is Sandman.
Yes, the good villain is 100%
I feel like it's so
Sandman.
repetitive. I feel like I
Ooh.
don't know what else to give you. I mean, we've had some
How-
good things to say about Harry, I
Yeah,
guess, but
it's fine. How good was the scene, his origin scene, where he's in the sand pit
Mhm.
and forming, and then the locket, and then just your heart.
yeah, that was some of the early days.
was
I mean,
so
they had to
good.
create so much new software to be able to do that scene,
Mhm.
and to get that right.
I'll
But I think
say,
they did, and I think
yeah.
it turned out very good. And again, you make a good villain by making them
Yeah.
problematic and relatable.
Dude, all of the Sandman effects are so good in this movie.
Oh yeah.
So pretty.
A very well done execution of arguably a more interesting character to
Mhm.
make, interesting and villain like, because he's just sand, and unless you're Anakin Skywalker, that's not that threatening. Especially when you've had military grade glider, with schizophrenic on board, when you've gotten a crazed doctor with Terminator arms. Like,
Tentacles.
Sandman
Yeah.
is kind of lower on the list,
Do you okay?
but they at least make him interesting in the
Yeah.
fight sequences and everything. Absolutely.
Do you remember that this is early days of the internet? Not early days. It was 2000 and something.
Hmm.
Do you remember on forums the argument of, is he really Doc Ock because he only has 6 arms? They're
No.
forgetting the legs. Like,
Oh.
yeah, it's 4 limbs on each
See,
side.
I legit never thought about it,
Yeah.
and then I just never cared, and then all
That-
of a sudden I realized, oh,
I got into several arguments with people because they were like, the legs don't count. It's about arms.
the octopuses don't have arms; they have tentacles in the first place.
Exactly. They're all legs. Except for one, which is a peepus.
He's got 8 appendages. Let's just
Exactly.
leave. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think this movie is it gets enough right to be decent,
Mhm.
but it definitely failed in the sense of, I think at this point there was so much at stake that from the corporate side, from the business side, there was a lot of deciding factors going on that just because I think the first two films, although they might have had studio influence, were very much
Hmm.
left to look, if you make something that makes a lot of money, we're going to leave you alone.
Yeah.
Versus now, it's just like, oh, this is clearly making a lot of money. Here's what's going to make you even more. And it's like, well, you don't want my movie to make a lot of money for me.
Yeah.
You want it to make a lot of money for you. And I feel like you're just shoehorning a lot of things in that you don't understand.
No, 100% no.
And to keep my job, I kind of have to do it.
Hmm.
Um, Sam Raimi has said that like if he got the chance to make his movie, people would have probably liked Spider-Man 3. He
We
probably would
would
have
have
gotten to make
done
Spider-Man 4. Um,
more Bruce
I'm not in the opinion though that it should be revisited. I think
Campbell.
if Toby and Andrew show up in No Way Home, I'm not claiming it is happening,
No.
but if it does, that's the most revisit I want.
Exactly. Like, I don't think you need to circle back around.
Overall, I do think, despite the action and despite the um hero versus villain side
Hmm.
of the ending of this film, I think as far as the characters go, they end at a good point.
Dude,
I don't necessarily feel the need for more.
you want a time capsule of the aughts. Watch the Sam Raimi Spider-Man
Yeah,
trilogy.
absolutely.
It's perfect.
It's a good little it's a good little trilogy. At the
Hmm.
end of the day, the beginning, middle, and end all do produce something where at the end you're like, that was good.
Yeah.
I I won't project and say that everyone is left with my opinion that that's enough,
Oh, I know
but
so many people who hate these movies.
uh, I can't understand that. I mean,
No.
even as much as I jab at Spider-Man 3, again, it does get some things right.
Yeah.
I think
It's
enough
fun to
that
watch.
enough that this is a good trilogy. I think you can rank the entire trilogy as good.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I really enjoy them as a whole, and I would only watch Spider-Man 3 in consecutive order. I'd only watch
Agreed.
them together.
Yeah.
Um,
As you should.
but yeah, I don't necessarily want to petition for more. I don't want the Sam Raimi cut. I think this is what it is,
Yeah.
and I think it should be left as what it is because in general, it's looked on fondly, and
Yeah.
yeah, fondly enough that it's impacting the MCU now again. The franchise that it helped set up, it's coming back
Exactly.
to, and so I think that's awesome. I think that's
Yeah.
enough. That's referencing and that's giving a reverence to this very good
Yeah.
trilogy.
I don't forget, what's your favorite and least favorite?
Yeah,
Quick.
I was gonna now.
Well, no.
Were you gonna say something?
Well, kind of.
Okay.
I didn't want to forget that though.
No, yes, that's
Yeah.
coming.
I'll say while watching the No Way Home trailer,
Mm-hmm.
the moment of the "Hello, Peter," I have not been that excited since Palpatine's laugh
Oh
in
yeah,
the Tross
very similar
panel.
reactions.
Very
Um,
similar.
and I'll also say, let's be honest, guys. As we have said,
Yeah.
the Nerd Herder stamped opinion is that the villains are the best
The
part.
villains are the
Let's
best
bring
part.
those back, and Toby can stay over there.
Yeah.
Uh,
He's kind of old to be Peter Parker right
and,
now.
and he's also kind of difficult to work with.
Yeah. I've
So
heard.
let's just bring the good parts of these films back.
Mr. Tears, you can stay over there.
Right. I mean, because again, I think they're doing that with the Garfield films. I liked the villains of
Every time you
I
say
I
that.
liked the villains of those films, and I think they're making a good choice in giving them a second outing.
I hate
And we will
Mondays.
talk more about that when we get to those films. But I think they're bringing the best parts of these movies. If they happen to bring the Spider-Man back too, okay. But I'm
Cool.
telling you, they're not getting the same level of hype from me
No.
as Willem Dafoe and Alfred Molina coming back, man.
Right?
Like that's
And Jamie
the big
Foxx.
deal.
He looks good.
When that's what I was
He looks so much better.
That's what I was alluding to when I was like, that's in my opinion, also the best parts of
Yeah.
those movies are the villains. But
Agreed.
we will talk about those next week. But
Yes.
for now, so to end out our Spider-Man, our Raimi Spider-Mans,
Aramis.
favorite and least favorite.
For Spider-Man
Yeah.
3. My I have a complicated, problematic faith. My favorite has grown on me since watching this movie for the first time, because the first time I watched it,
It's a
I was like,
Puma.
what is this stupid scene? Why is it in the movie? I don't
Oh my
understand.
god, are you talking about the
I'm
dance
talking
thing?
about dancing down the
Oh my
street
gosh.
with the stupid little hair flip and the the dance
See
moves.
that?
And I love it so much
See,
as
that's
an
my
adult.
least favorite.
Well, here's the thing, because watching it for the first time, I didn't notice like all of the women around him looking at him like a weirdo, and now I notice it, and I'm
Good for
like,
them.
okay, so everybody was in on the joke,
Right.
and it's so funny to watch now, especially since seeing the video that a lot of people have done where they take the music out of it and
Yeah,
just have the sound effects.
just the dry clapping.
Yes,
Um,
I love it so much. My least favorite is I don't know, man. I just how they handled Venom, honestly,
that's fair.
because as a fan of Venom and Eddie Brock and their love for each other, I guess I'm biased and I acknowledge that.
That's fair. I mean, I would say the same. I mean, my favorite thing about the original animated series was Venom.
Yeah,
I was one of many thousands, maybe millions of kids that saw that show, was introduced to this character,
that was my
and
introduction too.
um, just fell in love. And I remember having a giant, I mean, like 13-inch Venom figure. I remember I still have my Venom T-shirt that fits
hmm And
because
you have a black suit Spider-Man figure.
I do that. I keep because it's one of my favorite designs of Spider-Man as
Yes,
well.
it's so
There's a
cool.
reason I love these. Oh my gosh, um, Spider-Man Unlimited.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's the series that came after the animated show where it's in the future. They did the Batman Beyond thing, right?
as they should.
And so the black on Spider-Man works very well as
It
a
do.
design choice. I really like it. So
Minimalist Batman works too.
yeah, I have my original um, black suit Spider-Man. But yeah, I was so hyped for Venom that when I found a shirt for, I mean, it's just the Venom logo, right?
hmm
I bought it and did not check the size, and it was the only one at the store. I remember that like it was this of like, yes, I need this.
Yeah.
Um, it
Which
because it was so rare at that age to
yeah.
find things that represented my nerdiness. So I was just so excited. I bought it, and it did. It was a men's extra large, and being a wee lad at the
You're a
time,
petite little boy.
but now I'm a fat man, and it fits perfectly, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to keep a childhood T-shirt.
Yeah.
I love
It's
Venom,
perfect.
so
It's honestly surprising to me that you haven't seen the new Venom.
honestly, it's just because it's hard to get to, and we've really cut down on buying physical
Yeah,
discs. So,
we really have.
um,
What's what's your
because you
favorite?
started with, I'll say least favorite was that only because
It's
um,
goofy.
it's too goofy to be what the symbiote does to Peter Parker.
Yes.
Like we get that one scene where he hits MJ, and that's supposed to be enough, but like that this is supposed to completely turn him into the antithesis of himself. Like
hmm
this is supposed to fundamentally break him as a character, and I just don't think it does enough because it makes you moody, because it makes you
Yeah.
all like that's not enough reason to quit. I just don't feel like they felt they could do that in film, that they could tarnish their main character,
hmm
especially someone as Boy Scout as Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. Like all the things I praised them for casting him for in the first one lead me to think that that's why they couldn't do it right in the third one.
Understandable.
And so, although as funny and crazy as it is, I can't help but be like, this should be darker. This should be
Yeah.
more.
Unless you think of it as like this is what he thinks a villain should look like, and it
Trust me,
amplifies parts of your personality.
there's justifications for it
Yeah.
up and down, but it just doesn't. Although I can understand it and explain it, I still don't like it. And
Understandable.
so that's one of the biggest things I don't like.
That's fair. And you know what? The fact that you don't like it doesn't bother me.
Good. I still don't like Ghost Rider. Um,
Go jump in a lake.
my favorite thing, um, my gosh, it probably has to be the ending where Peter forgives Sandman.
Yes, that is a
I
good
think,
ending.
you know, because he's this unintentional villain of everything, because he's a guy that's just trying to do the right thing and has unfortunately gotten himself in trouble, to get that second chance, to get that forgiveness. I think is such a big deal, and it's so
Hmm.
weighty, it's so emotional, and it ties back to some of the things, like I said, that
Yeah.
I think the Uncle Ben thing was so warranted and deserving of
Yeah.
like now we get to be like, oh, Uncle Ben again, but like that one works so
Oh
well,
yeah.
and it ties directly into
Yeah.
this and Sandman's character that again, it just works so well. You could again be like, oh, sad villain again, and it's just like, but it works.
Yeah. It's
So
important.
so what if it happens again? All villains are broken people if we remember their
Exactly.
humanity.
And you just another fantastic action scene. The fight in traffic is so good,
Oh yeah,
especially the part where he's in the back of the sand truck and like pulls the sand up with him. It's so
yeah.
cool.
Uh,
It's so cool, guys.
they really did
Give
well
it another chance if you don't like
with
this
that.
movie.
Yeah, I think watch it and have some fun. If anything, watch the trilogy.
Yeah.
Join us in leading up to our excitement for the possible finale, the ambiguous position of the MCU Spider-Man.
I
Either way,
certainly hope not.
whether it's the end or whether it's just a pause, we're excited to see it, and
Hmm.
we are reliving our excitement of its past iterations, the original trilogy as well as the duology
But by
of
watching
the Garfield
my
movies.
least favorite Spider-Mans,
Yeah,
I don't like these movies.
the Garfield ones.
I don't like the Garfield
Oh, the next one's
movies.
going to be fun to talk
I
about then.
know. Okay. I have reasons that we will get into in the next
Yeah. So let us know your thoughts for sure. There's links in the description, whether you're listening or watching this, to our social medias. Hit us up. Let us know your thoughts on the Spider-Man movies, especially if you end up going back and watching them. Let us know if we changed your mind or if we offended you with our accurate opinions and yeah,
one.
whatever.
Our highly accurate opinions,
Yeah.
unless we're talking about Ghost Rider.
Yeah. No, I'm right. I don't
I,
care
I,
what
I
I
am
don't care
also
what you say.
right.
No,
I am 100%
we
right,
can't
sir.
both be right
Okay,
because
look.
then there's no one
Okay,
left.
okay. I love
So,
you so much.
yeah, check the description for all the important stuff. You can buy Nerd Herder t-shirts at a link thanks to our partner Jesse and Game Infinite. You can
Was a
also get
Jesse.
cool Star Wars shirts as well, or Star Wars adjacent. We can't technically, because of copyright, do Star Warsy, but if you wore them, people would be like, "Haha, a Star Wars."
I
So
like those
check
movies.
that out. Buy some coffee on us and
Like
support the
coffee
show.
for us.
That would also be great. This is a horrible season for me, and I could definitely do with some coffee and cocaine.
How
So
many times have I told you that I miss you in the last few weeks?
constantly.
Constantly.
There's again links to our social media, our Patreon if you want to pay for this. We don't offer a lot, but what we do is do our own thing, and you can support that if you want. All of those good things. Thank you to our patrons. Thank you to everybody that listens, and we'll be back next week talking about the Garfield movies, and seeing what Boop has to say about that to offend
Dude, I
people.
can't wait
If
to
I
talk about Garfield.
if I haven't offended you with my Ghost Rider opinions, I'm
Oh,
sure she will offend you
I'm
with
gonna
her
be
Garfield
full
opinions.
offensive.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You know, this is, excuse me, a damn fine cup of coffee.